Can statistics send a person to jail? Can statistics decide whether discrimination exists? Can probability help a judge in determining the guilt or innocence? In today's world, courts increasingly rely not only on witnesses and arguments, but also on data, probability, and statistical reasoning. In today's lecture, we shall explore the fascinating relationship between statistics and law and see how statistical reasoning influences justice in the modern society. In earlier times, court decisions depended mainly on eyewitness accounts, written documents, confessions, and legal arguments. But modern legal disputes are often far more complex. Today, courts handle cases involving employment discrimination, housing inequality, environmental pollution, misleading advertisements, medical negligence, DNA testing, disputed paternity, and so on. In such cases, evidence often appears in the form of percentages, averages, surveys, probabilities, and statistical comparisons. Thus, judges are increasingly required to evaluate statistical evidence. Let me discuss a famous legal case, which is known as Aizen versus City of Knoxville. Situated in the heart of East Tennessee, United States, Knoxville is a city rich in history, culture, and southern charm. A woman applied to the Knoxville Police Academy. She claimed that the academy's physical stamina test discriminated against women. To support her argument, she presented the results from her own class. She showed that out of 9 females, 6 passed and 3 failed, and so the pass percentage was 66.6%. Out of 37 males, 34 passed and 3 failed, and the pass percentage was 91.9%. According to the 4/5 rule used by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, discrimination may exist if minority pass rate divided by majority pass rate is less than 0.8. That is, if this ratio is less than 80%. Obviously, in this case, that is on the basis of data showed by that woman, this ratio comes out to be 0.666 divided by 0.919, which is equal to 0.725. Since 0.725 is less than 0.8, The women argued that the test unfairly discriminated against females. At first glance, her arguments seemed very strong, but the judge asked an important question. What happens if we examine the results of the entire academy instead of only one class? When the full academy data were examined, the results looked quite different. For the full academy, out of 19 females, 16 passed and 3 failed, giving the pass percentage as 84.2. And out of 67 males, 64 passed and 3 failed, giving the pass percentage as 95.5. Now, the ratio became 0.842 divided by 0.955, which is equal to 0.882. And this is greater than 0.8. So, the evidence no longer supported the discrimination claim. The situation was reversed. This case teaches a very important lesson. Sometimes a small subset of data may look very different from the whole population. People involved in disputes may selectively choose data that support their position. This is known as selection bias. The judge wisely observed, what matters is the entire universe of persons taking the test, not merely a small subset. This example shows why courts must carefully examine sample size, representativeness, hidden bias, and statistical reliability. There are various situations where data and statistical reasoning are used by judges for delivering the final judgment. I will quote some of them. First is DNA evidence in criminal cases. One of the most powerful uses of statistics in law is DNA matching. Suppose DNA collected from a crime scene matches the DNA of a suspect. The court then asks, how likely is it that this match occurred merely by chance? Experts may testify that the probability of a random person having the same DNA profile is 1 in 10 million. The statistical estimate becomes extremely important in deciding guilt or innocence. However, courts must also avoid a common mistake called prosecutor's fallacy. A very small probability of a random match does not automatically mean absolute guilt. Thus, statistical interpretation becomes crucial. Second case may be of medical negligence case. In medical litigation, statistical reasoning helps determine whether a doctor or hospital acted negligently. Suppose a patient dies after a treatment. The court may examine survival rates, complication probabilities, success percentages of standard procedures, etc. If a hospital's mortality rate is abnormally high compared with national averages, this may indicate medical negligence. Third case may be environmental and pollution case. Environmental regulation depends heavily on statistical evidence. Courts often evaluate pollution measurements, cancer incidence rates, air quality statistics, health surveys, and so on. Suppose a resident near a factory develops cancer at twice the normal rate. A statistical analysis may help you determine whether the factory's pollution is responsible for that. Fourth case may be consumer protection and false advertising. Companies sometimes make exaggerated claims such as 90% of users experienced improvement, most recommended product, scientifically proven, etc. etc. Courts may require statistical proof behind such advertisements. If surveys are based, or you may say that if the surveys are based on a small sample size, the claims may be declared misleading. The next case may be insurance and compensation cases. Courts often rely on actuarial and statistical calculations when deciding compensations. For example, future earning capacity, life expectancy, probability of disability, expected medical expenses, etc. Statistical life tables help estimate compensation amounts in accidents and wrongful death cases. In this way, we see that statistics has become one of the invisible pillars of modern justice. Courts increasingly depend on probability, sampling, and data analysis to discover the truth. But statistics is only a tool. Justice ultimately depends on how wisely and ethically human beings interpret statistical evidences. The modern courtroom is no longer governed only by legal arguments. It is increasingly influenced by probability, statistics, and data analysis. Understanding statistics is therefore not merely useful for scientists, it is essential for citizens, lawyers, and judges. Because in the search for justice, numbers matters. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this lecture, please like, share, and subscribe for more discussions on statistics, science, philosophy, and society. Thank you.